right, coming to you live from the Las Vegas Convention Center. We are here at the VapExpo, and it is time to start infusing the vape industry with CBD. Joining me are an esteemed group of people new and established within the CBD community, so please welcome Zach Edge, who is going to be the Senior Global Strategist at Folium Biosciences. We also have Shelby Stanley, Operations Manager at DigiPath Labs, Christian Grayson, Brand Manager at CBD Effects, and James Barret, Head of Product Development at Dinner Lady. Hi guys, how are we doing?
Hi, fantastic.
Good. Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, absolutely. So this is a hot topic, obviously so big that we had to add an entire room with CBD.io, and I want to thank you guys for being on the vape side. You haven't completely crossed over yet. Now, with that being said, we've got a lot of questions from consumers, potential brand developers, manufacturers, on all ends on how CBD can help us grow our business or change our lives. So I'd like to ask you, coming in, why you personally or professionally decided to get into CBD. James?
I was personally driven to get into CBD. The previous company I worked for, I've been in the industry 5 years, and the company, I joined Vape Dinner Lady, and it was the best move I did. And the guys had already been working on the idea of CBD before me started, and then obviously me joining the team, we've managed to get it off the ground. So, but I'm personally driven because I've seen what it does to people. My mother nearly died through potassium blood level in critical, and it was a long recovery process, and CBD helped her.
Probably when other things didn't.
Yeah. The pain that she couldn't take the prescribed drugs because for some reason she's got a terrible tolerance to all the side effects. So everything she took, she had a negative effect on her body. And CBD. Well, I used to smoke pot when I was younger, so when I first learned of CBD, and I just knew that's what I had to give her.
That's amazing. How's she doing?
She's great. She's had two full new knees in the last 12 months.
Still on the CBD?
Well, it was the CBD that stopped her taking the painkillers.
Yes, that's wonderful to hear.
And she was discharged from physiotherapy within 2 weeks of the operation.
Wonderful.
So it definitely works for my mother. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about pain management with CBD as well. With CBD Effects, you guys have been in the game for a minute. 2014 is a long time to be doing CBD. In fact, I remember my first VapExpo in Paris. With you had the liquid. I tried it. It was great, and I was very excited to see it. It's been a long journey for you, but how did it begin?
So the CBD Effects actually started as a little sidekick to the e-liquid line, Mad Hatter juice, and it just quickly grew, and now we're at a stage where CBD Effects actually outgrew Mad Hatter, just because of the crazy demand that's out there. It's been great. We started out with just vape products, and now we have a full line of topicals and creams and tinctures, capsules, gummy bears. So we're not just a vape brand anymore. We have the full lineup of full spectrum CBD products.
Absolutely, and it's available everywhere, all 50 states, and I believe in over 35 countries.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you can pick that up almost anywhere. Shelby, what about you? What led you into your path into all of this?
I started off professionally. I was given an executive assistant job at a local testing facility here in Nevada. And then it grew to personally when my stepfather got sick. And we started using it he was stage 4 diagnosed, so we knew what it was from the get. But we used a lot of that for quality of life. For sure, there was a lot of similarities with things that he was unable to take from doctors and really didn't want to. As much as THC, again, I'll bring that up because that's kind of what I know, but in conjunction with CBD, the THC psychoactive effect is still so much better than being so screwed up on pills that he finally, for the first time, he had never taken a drug, never smoked a cigarette ever in his life, and was very much willing to try any type of product that I would give him. A lot of CBD was included in that. And we had a huge outreach from all the local companies here in Nevada. Everybody would give us product or leave it at their dispensaries for him. So it was incredible what it did for him during those last couple of months.
Oh, a lot of passion there. And Zach, what about you? What brought you into not just Folium, but the CBD world?
Yeah, I've got a severe autoimmune disorder actually, and autoimmune disorders are really hard to treat in general. And about 4 or 5 years ago, a friend of mine had pointed out that maybe I ought to try CBD or hemp oil and see if it helped. And I started looking around at that point, and I had a really hard time finding a good brand or being able to tell what's good versus bad or what the difference was between them even. And after about 4 or 5 months of that, one of my friends introduced me to an individual who was running sales at Folium at the time, and they sent me some product down, and it worked unbelievably well. And over about 3 or 4 months, I was able to wean off of like 8 or 9 different prescription medications that I had been on for this autoimmune disorder. And then I got really interested in what this could actually do. And I don't know that it'll do that for everybody. It did that for me, and then it was enough to get me really interested. And it was about 60 days later before I had packed everything up and headed out to Colorado to join the team.
Wow,
So
that's
it's been a
amazing.
little bit of a slingshot since then. That
Yeah.
was 3.5 years ago. And we were 20 employees at that point. We're about 170 now. So
That's a lot of growth.
yeah,
And,
it looks a little bit different.
you know, we can touch on the business aspect of things. As far as, and I don't know necessarily in the UK how you guys are sourcing, but here domestically, scalability has been a huge issue for anyone looking to get into the CBD space. You know, there's very high minimums if you're trying to get in at a great price. So for a brand that's looking to transition into that, how do they scout the best company to work with and know that that company is going to allow them to be able to sell their product, to supply them in a timely manner with a consistent source?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's been a huge issue industry-wide this year. I think it's going to continue to be an issue, to be honest with you, for probably another 2 years. The fact that there's just not enough hemp being grown and extracted and produced
Is the
worldwide.
Farmers Bill not going to change that though?
It will, but I think that you're going to need another year of infrastructure and learning for the
Yeah, then
farmers
you've
to
got
actually
cycle of the crop
execute.
anyway, haven't you?
Yeah.
Can you guys touch on the farmers bill that just passed and what that means for everyone and what's happening in the next 90 days?
Well, that's just locally.
Okay.
So NEC 522 locally in Nevada just really heightens everyone's testing hemp-wise for all the farmers. But you have to realize that the hemp program, the pilot program in Nevada started last year. There was about 15 growers. About 5 of them were growing. One of those particular farmers had 10 acres. This year they're at 75, I believe, in total. So the growth in one farmer from last year to this year is astronomical. There's 300 acres in Pioche, and it's not just in southern Nevada, it's all over the state. Washoe County has very large grows. The majority of our farmers are in Nye County, which is about 45 minutes outside of Las Vegas. They're growing the majority, but can't keep up for sure. And the bottleneck in Nevada is extraction. There are very few hemp handlers. This is a very good market to be in for anybody who can crush that product into oil, right? I mean, that's how we say it in the cannabis space. Liquid gold this is the time to do it, because he's right. There's another 2 years where their legislation just isn't there. The testing is going to heighten with that bill in Nevada, but that's really all that happens, and they test every 100 pounds versus every 5 pounds from cannabis, you know, so the rules are written for them in Nevada, but it's going to take a while, I think, till they get adopted.
Yes, and with so much changing, I would like to know, who do you guys think are allies in this? Where is it, obviously, of course, the farmers, and it's the companies that can supply us, but who are the allies? I mean, obviously, it's not Big Pharma. So who have you looked to, other industries that you've been able to work with, especially as you go into health and wellness and cosmetics and things like that? Who do you predict will be?
I think we need these guys for the Nevada market, that's for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that's where I'm going to go straight to that, but I'll let you, obviously.
So from your perspective, e-liquid is an ally, yes.
Well, having companies that have the experience, that have been doing it. Everyone here, they're throwing up CBD shops and they're throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, but they don't have the experience. And I think to help farmers scale up, That's a real big issue. Genetics are a huge issue here. There's really one common strain amongst the entire state, and that's not what people always want. So I think that's a big thing here is lack of experience locally.
Well, there's like a primary relationship, I think, between the hemp industry and the vape industry in that specific example. And we have a joint interest there. And we had talked earlier about the link between the two industries. And I think it's interesting that it's developed the way that it has. And I think it's for a number of reasons, mainly that we're dealing with a lot of entrepreneurs that are already familiar with the regulatory landscape of dealing with the FDA. They're already familiar with dealing with high-risk merchant processing and high-risk marketing online. They're good at direct-to-consumer sales and the direct-to-consumer model, which is really good for this ingredient right now, and it's a natural fit. Plus, you've all come to us already with co-packing capabilities and branding capabilities that a lot of these other startups don't have, because you've just done it for the last 5 years in the vape space, and you've watched this regulatory landscape change, and you're watching the wave come through with CBD next. And it's really interesting to watch, because I've got friends that have been incredibly successful in vape, and I don't do vape directly, but because of that, I know a lot about the industry, and I know a lot about supplying CBD into the industry. And absolutely, the biggest issues are the ones that you nailed right off the bat, that there are high manufacturing minimums for the ingredient, because large-scale labs have to have them to maintain efficiency in production. And your industry in particular really likes a high level of customization, and that requires the ability to take raw ingredient and do the formulation yourself, or to take like a bulk formulation that's ready for flavoring and then do the flavoring yourself. And a lot of guys really still aren't prepared to do that. They're using co-packers, they're using formulators, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's good business on a lot of levels for the co-packers and the formulators as well. But when you're talking about making the transition from mixing a water-soluble ingredient into a water-soluble solution and packaging it, to mixing an oil-soluble ingredient into a water-soluble solution and packaging it, it requires a higher level of science. It requires a higher level of infrastructure in your lab, better trained scientists, and not everybody has that, and not everybody's willing to pony up to put those resources in place. And I think that that's led to the industry as a whole leaning on isolate. And my personal opinion is that that's a dangerous move from the regulatory landscape that you're seeing specifically in the EU already. And here in the US, it's not far behind. With Epidiolex coming to market, using a pharmaceutical ingredient in your formulations or marketing a CBD-specific product carries some liability with it. And I think it's responsible to acknowledge that, at least on the front end, when you're talking about entering the market. And ways to mitigate that risk as you move forward over the next couple of years. And the Farm Bill passes here in the U.S. on the federal level, and we start building in these regulations on top of it, and it ultimately serves as a foundation. Because we're going to move, I think, more and more towards GRAS designation for it as an ingredient, and that's going to take some time. But we've got this next 24 to 36 months where we're looking at a lot that's comparable to what you've just gone through with vape and nicotine.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we went through the TPD, didn't we? So, yeah, that was a nightmare.
Yeah. So going into that as a consumer, if I'm going into the shop, I don't have a professional necessarily able to speak to my particular ailment. Give me kind of the 101 on isolate versus distillate, the entourage effect, maybe how it has influenced your line of products, and what the consumers can look out for when they're trying to select something that is right for them.
So when you talk about the entourage effect, obviously you get it from full spectrum CBD oil. A lot of people think that CBD is only medicinal molecule in the hemp plant, but the fact is that you have other molecules like CBN and CBG and obviously THC. They all have some kind of effect on the body, and you have amino acids, fatty acids, terpenes, all of them together in a mix. It's a better, I wouldn't call it medicine, but you just get a better effect from having all the molecules in a product than just CBD. Some people say that CBD does what CBD does no matter what. It doesn't matter if you have other compounds, but the compounds themselves. So CBN is going to help you with sleep. CBD is going to help you with inflammation. So having them all together is just it's a better product.
James, as far as for the new Dinner Lady CBD line, did you go full spectrum?
We've got full spectrum oral drops, but the vape is isolate.
Okay, and the reasoning behind that?
Purely because a full spectrum vape oil damages the coils quicker. So if a coil starts to degrade, obviously the cotton's deteriorated, so you're affecting what you're actually inhaling. So you're not going to actually get what you intended to get from that bottle in that vape. So we chose isolate over full spectrum for that reason.
So that's great to know, because I think with all the potential new products that are out in the market, it's difficult to pick something up and know whether or not it's right for you. Can we talk a little bit about ingredient listings and maybe some things to watch out for? Because I know I've picked up some CBD bottles and seen a lot of unnecessary things, and we like to call it snake oil. So for the companies that are doing it right, it's very transparent. There's a lot of different carriers that you can use within your CBD oil. So maybe you could give us a heads up on what to watch out for.
I would say, companies are openly saying that this product cures, cancer and, helps with this and that. Like, this is not the way to go about it.
No, not at all.
The way that we do it, we put a lot of third-party studies on our site, and then it's up to people, to go on our site and do their own research. And we say that, to anybody that walks up to the booth, like, you got to do your own research. Because right now you don't have, like, a definitive, like, this is what CBD is going to do for you, So
you can do that with testing results. So that's my obvious answer to all of this is
That's a good
ask
idea.
for the
Testing
certificate
results.
of analysis.
Which should be
if you
provided.
ever purchase anything from anybody, and if you'd like a second step or a second verification, at least here in the U.S., you can ask for their hemp handler's license, their hemp grower's license. In fact, in order for me to accept one of those samples, I need to have the license in which it was grown from. Even if it's a farmer from Colorado or Oregon, I'm able to accept those samples as long as I have the license that says they grew it in Oregon, Washington, on this parcel, under this license.
So every consumer that goes in to purchase anything has every right to request the type of testing.
Not every company is going to test.
Fair enough. Okay.
But if you are looking for verification, that's what you would be asking for, is to say, if you're purchasing on a large scale, you're definitely like, yo, give me a certificate of analysis.
Yeah,
Of course, you want to see, and everyone's different too. Some people want just the cannabinoid profile. Some want cannabinoids and terpenes. Some people here locally, if they're going to put the product on their shelves, they want it to go through pesticides, heavy metals, micro, terpenes, cannabinoids, mycotoxins, aflatoxins, ochratoxins. The stringent testing in Nevada, you literally are smoking the cleanest product in at least the United States. The micro limits we have set forth in Nevada are at the 100,000. The food you consume is in the millions. Tea we drink is in the billions. So again, our stringent testing levels here alone, pesticides 22 that we test for, the heavy metals we test for. There's no other state in the United States other than California who just implemented additional pesticides, but that's the huge bottleneck in California right now is testing labs. So.
And James, maybe you could speak on that as far as the European landscape, because I'm not sure
I
as far
have no
as the
idea.
testing.
I would love to know how testing works.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. It's a certificate of analysis, proving the authenticity, if you like, of the CBD and the product that you've got. France you're in France, aren't you? You know the territory.
yeah.
Shows you zero non-detected THC. Pretty much the same in the whole of Europe, isn't it? So our certification will have a picture of the product as well alongside it, so the customer can relate if they look at it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that seems extremely helpful to the consumer. But I think Dinner Lady has always gone above and beyond to make sure that the consumer has everything that they need to make an informed decision.
Exactly, yeah. We're very careful, and we make sure we do things to the letter.
But the lab report is a no-brainer. You just got to have it as a consumer as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies right now that don't have lab reports on the site.
Just going back to your point earlier, what makes people allies in the industry is companies like us that are doing things right and working together to make sure there is a standard and people are getting a quality product. Avoiding the snake oil, as you said earlier.
That's right. I mean, the
It's
strong
big.
companies that are doing it right, I think will continue to succeed. And everyone who's trying to get in it just for a quick fad or a quick buck because they like the margins or because they, think they're jumping on a trend, I think
They won't
we will
last.
be. Yes, it'll be very transparent,
They won't last.
and the consumers will know what is right and what's best for them, and who's doing it for the right reasons and the right ways. So, were you going to say something?
No, I mean, I think self-regulation, that's dead on the mark. That's what makes allies of the industry.
Yeah.
It's people that are doing things the right way and not cutting corners and making sure that the end user is getting the best product available. Absolutely, 100%.
And as a lab, we stress partnership. That's the first thing I made sure getting into at least the business, if I was ever going to either side of it wasn't ever going to be about money, at least for myself and the company that I work for. We're also publicly traded. It's no shame, and I say that only because we're 100% transparent. I love that about my company.
Well, we're the same. That's the same ethos
I
as
love
us.
it.
Everyone we work with it's a long-term partnership for sustainability in the future.
It's the only way to work with one another, and for those formulating, to have a lab on your side and to be working right next to someone. We've worked with Folium and had great success, and Cindy's worked with other vape companies in our market and helped them formulate companies that are 5 and 6 years old coming out of Colorado. So I think Vegas is really a very unique market and industry to be in on all levels. Vape, CBD. We're here to service debauchery, and both of these add to that list. And I say that lovingly. I grew up here. This is my home. But I think, again, the unification of it is just all the more reason to make more money, right? Even if, like you mentioned earlier, if they start, they're totally off nicotine, well, he's got a product that's CBD only, so he's still going to make money off that consumer.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that because I've been seeing a few more of the review boards and CBD groups talking about using CBD to get away from traditional tobacco and nicotine. Maybe you can speak to this. I know the last 4 years, have you seen maybe customer testimonials of people that have started off with combustible tobacco and moved towards the CBD vapables?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only nicotine, it's also alcohol and prescription drugs and everything.
Do you know if in their experience they were able to taper off of the nicotine and move into more of the CBD space, or like maybe what their experience was in the user experience?
Definitely happens. Right now we have our creative designer, artwork manager. He used to smoke, a lot. Started with cigarettes and then he did e-liquid, and now he's like, I don't want to do nicotine anymore. So he's vaping CBD on a daily basis, and it helps him.
And we talk about vaping it as well, the immediate effect versus taking a capsule or using it topically and sublingually. I know some people really do prefer vaping it. So again, speaking to your end user's experience, the preference of vaping it over taking it sublingually or topically.
I think it's just a question of preference, honestly. With vaping, when you vape CBD, you get a quicker absorption.
Am I right in thinking it's about 70% bioavailability through the lungs, isn't it? It's about
it's
And
60
it has
to 70%.
shorter effects, correct? And then the effect is shorter.
Some people say that. I don't know if we have necessarily third-party studies on that. But
Is that just speculation?
In
I
general,
think
the
it goes-
faster you
Yeah,
can
I
deliver
think
something
it
into
goes-
the bloodstream, the faster it will also be metabolized by the body.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it goes back to also, for instance, like our situation, couldn't vape. Just wasn't an option. When you're that sick, you don't want to be coughing. You're already in so much pain. So you're seeking out their topicals or any other product line that they have. But again, it's being covered by the company and branding if they're doing it right.
Yeah.
They're looking at, okay, this particular ailment can't ingest vape, so let's put a topical line out or let's put a tincture out. I think keeping that in mind at certain levels of that ailment, you can't necessarily ingest vaping because it's just painful, right? But there's always a backup product
Of course,
if it's being considered.
Very true.
Portfolio's growing all the time, isn't it? We've actually got on the stand some full spectrum iced tea.
See, that's
Full spectrum.
That's so big
So if you wanna-
time. That's so nice.
And you're
so great.
Are you guys? That's just something that we have a treat for this show, or is this something you guys are taking to market?
It's
We
just
can
for
all-
this show. It is coming
Oh.
to market, but it's just so come by and have a taste.
Okay, that's beautiful. So now we've talked about CBD, but let's talk about the future because we're already evolving past CBD at this point. You know, we're talking about CBG and we're talking about CBG. I'm sorry, right? Yeah. So can we? These are all new to me as well, and I'm really excited to start talking about the other elements within the plant that we can start working with, not just in the vape space, but in this new wellness arena. So do you guys have any plans for new product development outside, like beyond CBD?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, from
I'm
Everyone's all
tongue-tying
like,
myself with
who's-
all the letters. I'm
who's
sorry.
Who's gonna see?
I want to know what's next. I want to know what's coming. I want to be excited to see what's going to hit the shelves. So give us an inside peek.
So right now there's a lot of talk about terpenes, and you get maybe 30 or 40 or 50% of the benefits from the terpenes in the full spectrum product. And you have companies that are starting to extract CBN and CBG because there's a different medicinal benefit to that molecule. So I think there's going to be more research into what can the plant do, and all the compounds, not only CBD. And you'll see products. Let's say you want a product for sleep, you do 100% CBN.
You can't do that in the UK, though. That's the problem because it's prohibited.
Oh, see here, I mean, I think terpenes are the wave of the future in the U.S. It's big time. We wrote a white paper about it, DigiPath did. We did a huge study on, 2,200 samples here locally and found very quickly that cannabinoid profiles were not what was differentiating all the flower. It was their terpene profiles, and there's really not 200 strains. There's really about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And the terpene profile is what's showing you that. Now, this is just locally, this is just done here. Obviously, you'll note that in the white paper, but I think, again, terpenes have been underlooked for too long, and for the longest time, I mean, we've only been our medical market started in 2015, and then we just went recreational for the last year, so we've been THC driven. Everybody, they walk into a dispensary and they say, give me the highest THC. It's the most unfortunate thing because they're missing out on so many beautiful, such great products. There's a lot of great flower grown that's under 20% and they can't get it on the shelves because it's not high THC, but they have high terpenes and again, the flower, it's amazing, but they've had troubles explaining that, and we try to go out there as a lab and educate people on every level. Does vaping use terpenes do you guys use terpenes to flavor?
No.
Not water soluble.
No. Okay.
We have a terpene line actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically the terpenes and isolate.
Okay.
The thing with full spectrum is that it carries a lot of natural flavor from terpenes and the fatty acids. So if you want a flavor product, it's really difficult to mix the two. The same with the e-liquid. If you want a strawberry full spectrum product, it's going to taste almost like black tea. It has that bitterness, the leafiness. So that's why a lot of people prefer isolate. But I think with the product we just came out with, you have kind of a hybrid because you have the terpenes. It's obviously it's a high terpene product mixed with isolate, and based on the specific terpene strain, you get specific benefits. Some terpene strains help you with relaxation, and if you have issues with sleeping or stress or anxiety, you want a specific strain. Whereas if you want more like a uplifting, happy feeling, you want a different strain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not talking about the high.
Right. And there's another argument, the psychoactive versus non-psychoactive, and even though we have read claims that CBD is non-psychoactive, that there is a small element of psychoactivity that happens. Can you speak to that for someone who maybe is uncertain about using CBD and and maybe calm their fears about what they're actually going to be ingesting and experiencing and how it affects the endocannabinoid system. And I know everyone has a unique user experience, but maybe how you've curated your products to take that into consideration.
Yeah, CBD is a non-psychoactive molecule completely. THC is a psychoactive molecule.
But don't the two affect one another when you...
No, not really.
Okay.
In general, like in legalized states, a lot of times if you go into an emergency room where a patient's come in and is overdosed and having some sort of nervous episode or anxiety attack around having too much THC on board, they'll administer CBD because it actually reduces the psychoactivity of the THC molecule. It's really interesting. They compete for some of the same receptors throughout the body. But we hear a lot about medicinal patients coming in and using CBD and full spectrum hemp oil that's devoid of THC to kind of modulate the effect of their medication or their THC and maintain mental acuity throughout the day so that they can continue to function. We get this misnomer around that a lot because there have been products put into the market by various companies, actually mainly in the vape space, that contain synthetic cannabinoids and are labeled as CBD, or contain other illicit compounds or psychoactive compounds and are labeled as CBD. There's been a couple of those publicly.
I found a product in Birmingham last week or 2 weeks ago that got melatonin in it.
Yep.
CBD product.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And then the other issue, obviously, is that although it's non-psychoactive, up until recently, the technology for a zero THC product or a full spectrum product has been either isolate or a full spectrum oil that contains THC.
Right.
And there are a few labs now, Folium being the largest by probably an exponential number, that can produce a full spectrum oil that's had the THC removed without going to a crystalline isolate. But that's a relatively new thing, like the last 2 years. So before that, all of the technology, if you wanted a full spectrum product, it did contain a modicum of THC as well. And there is some psychoactivity there. So I think that that's kind of furthered that confusion.
And something they had mentioned earlier is like they have zero THC in their product, in their flower that's being grown. That is not the case in the U.S. You see THC in the starting product.
Yeah, even in the flower, it'll be at 0.2, 0.1%, and then that gets condensed in the initial extract up to 1-2% in the raw oil if it's not removed, generally.
Speaking of, this is a hot little topic here in the U.S. Who does grow the best flower for using the CBD?
Colorado.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna give them
Not biased
that.
at all.
I'm gonna give them that just because again we've only been on the we're 2 years out of our pilot program, so I think that Nevada is gonna make a strong push, just in the growth that's happened. But Colorado and guys who've already been doing it are
Colorado
the leaders.
and Kentucky
That's just what
have
it
been,
is.
yeah, Colorado and Kentucky have been doing it the longest, so
Right.
they're going to put up the biggest numbers, obviously. I think if you ask around, you'd probably hear that Colorado has the best genetics of anywhere. But to be completely fair, we've seen some unbelievable crops come up out of Oregon and Washington as well. California is so restricted that most of the big growers don't want to grow there, to be
Yeah.
completely honest. They've moved to Washington or Oregon.
Especially even with CBD products now, what they have to deal with is just horrifying in California.
But I've seen a lot of photos from harvest this year with 8 and 10 foot plants, some with 12 and 14 foot plants, which means that guys are really starting to perfect the craft, and it's different doing that outdoor. The biggest issue everyone faces isn't the growing of the plants, it's harvesting and processing the material properly. And that requires an entirely different level of infrastructure to be able to do it. Because you can grow 100 acres, to be able to harvest 100 acres efficiently and dry it fast enough so that it doesn't mold is an entirely different ballgame.
I just had a farmer go through it. I just watched him go through
all the
it.
time.
He went from a 10-acre farm to a 70-acre farm and hired 50 people. 50 people in a tiny town of a population of 30,000 in Nye County. He had to throw a job fair and go and hire 50 people to get through this harvest. He's never done it ever, mind you. This is his first harvest on 65, 70 acres. So, but you just walked in there and there's 50 people going at it. We're definitely behind other states in Nevada. catching up to
It
them
sounds like
for
you're catching
sure.
up quickly, yeah. So I'd like for you guys, for anyone who may be potentially thinking about moving into the CBD space, or an end consumer that's thinking about trying the product, your closing thoughts and advice to them. James?
Mine would be more for someone who was thinking of using CBD. I would advise them just to check what it says on the packaging. Advise them to ask for certification and do as much research as possible.
Beautiful advice?
Yeah, just be due diligent, you know. Don't just go for the cheapest product, because there's a lot of cheap stuff out there, and you don't know what you're getting. So make sure you get the CFA and do your research, ask questions.
I'm just going to third that motion for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, call these guys if you want to start an oil company in the U.S. Call him if you need help formulating or whatever. You know, I mean, that's all I can really say is going to those who have been through it. Us going to Colorado growers and Oregon growers is really important, and I encourage it to everybody because they've been doing it. They know how to harvest. They know how to make an oil. They know how to infuse it. So why not just go and ask if you can be a part of the team, or if they want to launch in your country or your state.
All right, so the important thing here is to keep the conversation going. Make sure you ask questions, read the ingredients, and know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. The conversation is going to continue at the CBD.io stage on the other end of the room. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be with Phil and Dimitri. We are live at the VapExpo at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Stay tuned.